Public Affairs very much thanks Residco, our sole corporate underwriter, for helping to make the production of this show possible.
The entire premise of the public school system is ensuring that children can learn, can read and write and be productive citizens. We're not even doing that. That's the very basic of things. Urban Center Action is very important in the sense that if we weren't able to raise the kind of money that we needed to raise, these candidates that are opposed to Mayor Brandon Johnson and opposed to the Chicago Teachers Union would never stand a chance to get their message out. So as far as I'm concerned, we help to level the playing field in these races against the Chicago Teachers Union and their monies.
You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics and public policy because we have as our guest Juan Rangel. He is the executive director of the Urban Center, which is focusing on Chicago right now, but he has ambitions of covering all of Illinois. Is that right?
To do that, absolutely.
All right. So, look, we'll come back with more about our guest, Juan Rangel. But the important thing, what's on everybody's mind, is the school board elections.
That's right.
You're heavily involved in school board elections. One aspect, maybe the major aspect from your perspective, might be school choice. What is school choice, Juan Rangel?
School choice, as I see it, is giving parents and really empowering parents to make decisions for themselves. I think we've always believed that parents are the best people to make decisions on behalf of their families and their children. And they do so on a wide variety of issues in the household, except when it comes to education. Government tends to tell them where their children are going to get educated and how their children are going to get educated. And I think I certainly have been a believer that no, that decision should be left up to the parents, not to the school district. And so school choice to me is that. It's the empowerment of parents. In
your mind, school choice is giving the parents of the child the right to pick his or her school. Absolutely. Are you in agreement with me? Is that
Absolutely.
What school choice?
Sure.
And anywhere, private, public, whatever,
Absolutely.
They should be able to take their money that's being spent on them, or at least their kid, and go any school in, say, Chicago, and perhaps maybe even outside of Chicago.
Absolutely. And people work very hard for their money, and children get an education based on parents' money or taxpayers' money, right? And parents ought to make that decision as to where they think their money is better spent for their children. So, yes, absolutely.
So to be clear, we spend about $30,000, taxpayers spend about, at federal, state, and local, spend about $30,000 per year per kid at CPS.
Yes.
If you could, would you like to say to the school board, why don't you give every parent $30,000, put it in the backpack, give all the kids one backpack, one packet of $30,000. If the kid talking with the parents, they decide they want to go to another school, out goes the kid, out goes the backpack, out goes the cash. If they like the school they're at CPS, they stay there, nothing changes. Would you do that if you could?
Well, I'll tell you, I think parents and community residents are very smart in terms of how they spend their money, and they want a good return on their investment. So certainly when it comes to the children, their children, I think they would want the best in a return on their investment. It's their dollars, and they should be able to choose, and they will choose wisely in terms of what works best for them. They know their children. They know their children's needs. And there's no reason why they shouldn't have a say in that matter.
So is your answer to my question, yes, you would, if you had the power, you would empower all of those parents to do just as I just said?
Well, I'll tell you, I used to run charter schools, and the best solution there is giving parents the opportunity to enroll their kids, if they choose to enroll their kids in my school. And we never had under-enrollment. We always had waiting lists because people were trying to desperately get into our schools. So I think parents are very good consumers, so yes.
Okay, but that's a charter school that's currently a part of the CPS system,
Correct.
A public school. For some reason, they don't get their capital costs. They got to go beg for those, but they get their operating costs from CPS, right?
Right.
That's a charter school.
That is a charter school.
But you went further. If you could, in our discussion, you'd give the parents, yes, they can go to a charter school. Yes, if they can test in, they can go to a select enrollment school. Yes, they can go to a magnet school. Yes, they can go to a traditional neighborhood school. Yes, they might even be able to homeschool. But
sure.
you would say, take the money if you like, go to the private school. They take it, they accept the student, out goes the $30K. You would do that in addition to what you liked about charter schools.
I think it would be up to the parents to make a decision.
I'm saying you'd give them that opportunity.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't we?
I don't know. Some people say no. We'll come back to this, the school board election specifically, but you're working intensively on that at the Urban Center. And you're working, I guess, Paul Vallis, is he chairman of your board?
No, actually, Paul has been very, very helpful, and I've known Paul for many, many years since he ran the school district in Chicago. Back in the mid-'90s, that's how long I've known him. He's a good friend of mine. And Paul is the chairman of our PAC. We have a political action committee. We have 2 PACs, and he's the chairman of one of them. But he's been very, very helpful.
What's the name of those PACs?
It's Urban Center PAC is one, and the other is Urban Center Action, which we've been able to, with Urban Center Action, we've been able to raise significant funds to support candidates that are willing to give voice to parents. So
That's Urban Center Action?
yes.
And how much, when you say significant funds, as of today's date, October 28, 2024, how much roughly have you raised?
As of today's, just a little under $1 million.
Okay,
So,
and is how much of that still available for spending?
it's dwindling now that elections
Ballpark,
are
what do you
around
think's
the
left?
corner. Maybe about 200,000.
So you've spent about $800K already.
Yes.
That goes direct. That's not an independent expenditure committee. You're giving it to the candidates,
No,
and
that is an independent
it's an independent expenditure
Yeah,
committee.
absolutely.
can't give it to them directly, but you can spend on their behalf. You can say, vote for this person,
Yep.
et cetera. You can't coordinate with the candidates,
Correct.
right?
That is correct.
And that's Urban Center
Action. Yes.
Urban-
And I'll tell you,
okay.
Urban Center
UCA,
Action.
okay.
Urban Center Action is very important in the sense that if we weren't able to raise the kind of money that we needed to raise, these candidates that are opposed to Mayor Brandon Johnson and opposed to the Chicago Teachers Union would never stand a chance to get their message out. So as far as I'm concerned, we help to level the playing field in these races against the Chicago Teachers Union and their monies.
You got 9 candidates, or the Urban Center has 9 that your independent expenditure committee is working on behalf of. Could we put it that way?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Those are, well, and they're not 10 because something went wrong. Was it in the 5th district? You had a candidate, you thought that would be your candidate, and that candidate dropped out, right?
Well, I'll tell you, in District 5, it was going to be a contested race.
Blase, right?
Huh?
Wasn't her name Blase?
Well, actually, there was several candidates.
Several, okay.
Yeah, there were several candidates, and just goes to show you in terms of the hypocrisy when people talk about democracy or giving people a voice and parents a voice. All of the candidates were taken out, were removed, either by petition challenges by the CTU or the mayor himself asking the last candidate standing to withdraw.
He
candidacy.
personally asked the
Oh,
person.
absolutely. He called.
He had no power. He couldn't remove her.
No, he couldn't remove her, but he asked her.
She
and
complied?
She complied, and lo and behold,
Was she purchased? Would you put it that way? Was there an exchange, a promise? I'll give you this, and then just get out of the damn race?
well, I don't know the specifics, but I will say she did end up on the new school board that the mayor appointed just last
a coincidence.
week. Just a coincidence.
As they say, there are no coincidences in Chicago.
Absolutely.
So we know what happened.
Yes.
Brandon said, here, we'd like you out of here. And then she got out, and now you're on the board because now I put you on the board.
Right, and so there's only
And
one
that's the
candidate.
Chicago way, isn't
That
it?
is the Chicago way,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, that's the way things are. And there's one candidate left, and that's the CTU candidate, and so that district will go uncontested.
So, but when you started this thing on the elections, people had already filed petitions. They had already become candidates. You weren't out recruiting candidates, were you?
Correct. We were not. I think that Urban Center was launched earlier this year, right? With really what we had in mind is looking at issues across the board, education choice being first and foremost, but also, and we have a problem with crime, we have a problem with taxation, we have a problem with government or lack of government accountability. And so we felt that there was a need for an organization that's going to work at the grassroots level, do community organizing, that famous phrase, right? But apply it to a group of families and residents that are desperately trying to get out from under our system that's gone way crazy left here. In the interim, the legislature passed a law to create the local school board races, and people started applying for those, and we vetted the candidates, and I think we found some pretty good candidates that we identify with, and they identify with what we're trying to do, and we're
Pretty
helping
good,
them.
pretty good. Are they school choice candidates, all 9 that are left?
All of our candidates are supporting school choice, which is
Private and
gratifying.
public?
They'll run the gamut in terms of school choice itself, but certainly in terms of what they believe in empowering parents. That's
But
first
some
and
of them would say public school choice, but no money for private schools?
Yeah, but I think they're open. I think there's just a whole range of what school choice
There's
could
a
look
whole
like.
range. You think even the ones might say what I said, they might be open to school choice, including private schools, or kids or parents being empowered to send their kids to private schools, but maybe not necessarily in 2024.
Right.
But they're open to looking at it.
They're open
All
to
of them are
looking
open. Some of them, would you say, are unabashedly, that's okay right now, right?
Yeah, I
mean,
believe that, and I'll tell you,
You know them personally? You know which is, like Menquel Lewis. You know Menquel?
I do know Mick well. I got
Okay.
to meet him this year.
He was
Didn't
here.
know him.
Sounds like he'd be unabashedly all, right?
I believe so.
Michelle
I believe
Pierre,
so.
she was here. She was on
I
the show.
believe so.
She would say
and
that.
These are consummate professionals in the education realm, and they've learned this in many different ways.
Andre Smith, he was here. It sounds like he would say that. There are
Absolutely.
3 right there.
Right.
Bruce Leon, he was a little bit hesitant about school vouchers. He said the word made him nervous. Does it make you nervous?
No.
No.
I always joke that I used to be supportive of school choice back in the day when we were allowed to call them vouchers and all that.
And then they
Look,
had to
all
be
those-
opportunity scholarships.
Yeah, but
right?
look, all of that is political rhetoric as far as I'm concerned. I stick to my own in terms of empowering parents. If parents wanted,
You're a
we should
pure
em-
voucher guy.
I-
Take the money, give it to the parents. They decide where it goes. No qualifications.
I
right?
trust parents. I do trust parents.
Okay. So is there a division? So it's you and Paul Vallis are working on this. You work closely together with others. What about Andrew Broy from the INCS, Illinois Network of Charter Schools?
Sure.
Been there for like almost 15 years now.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Inks
You work
and-
closely with Andrew.
We do work very closely with Andrew Broy and Inks. They're one of our partners, and we're very proud of our broad coalition that we've been able to put together. So absolutely.
Any difference of opinion? How does Andrew feel about school vouchers and school choice?
I don't know.
You never really talked about it with him?
Not really. I've known Andrew for many, many years. I served on the board of Inks many years ago as well. So we have a long history together. But his organization is primarily focused on charter schools, as they should. And we're proud to be supportive of charter schools.
He has never come up to you and says, cut out the stuff
No,
about
no.
vouchers. I don't want these private
No.
schools getting our money. He never
No,
says that.
No, he's never said that.
He-
And-
he's focused on charters, but he's not anti-school
No.
vouchers, anti-parents being allowed to use
I've never-
current funds for private schools.
I've never heard that, but I'll tell you, I think for advocates of charter schools and school choice in general, that sort of competition is actually good for families, and we should give parents more options rather than less. So.
Yeah, you think that, but you're not sure whether Andrew thinks. But does Andrew prefer to have his check coming from the government? That's who it comes from now.
Yeah.
From the CPS, under a true system, like I said, it comes from the parents. The parents have the control, right?
Sure.
That's the difference. We don't know. I've had Andrew on before.
Mm-hmm.
My negligence, I don't think I asked him that question 14 years ago. It's about time I questioned him again, right?
Yeah. Well, I would say that Andrew and Inks are very strong and effective advocates on behalf of charter schools. Charter schools have been under assault by the teachers union, and I'm glad that they're there, and I'm glad that we have them as a partner as well.
So is it also your movement, is it also anti-Chicago Teachers Union?
You know what? I guess in these days, just because the radical fringe left has taken over the teachers union. But I'll tell you, there was a time when the Chicago Teachers Union would host fundraisers for organizations that I would lead.
Deborah Lynch comes to
Debbie
mind,
Lynch,
former guest of Public Affairs.
Absolutely, yeah.
Debbie Lynch was a person who you could break bread with.
Absolutely, and I think
Yeah.
there's many others in the history of teachers unions. Right now, we
But
find
not
ourselves.
Stacey Davis Gates.
I think they
Couldn't
found.
break bread with her, could you?
I would love to have a conversation with Stacey. I'm not sure she would be interested in having a conversation with
okay.
me.
All right. So this movement is going ahead. The election, we're taping this on October 28th. So 1 week and 1 day later, well, people are already voting with early. We don't have an election day anymore. We have an election season. But that season ends in terms of the last vote is on November 5.
Correct.
Okay. As you look at it now, what's your best hope of those 9 district seats? There are 10 districts. You're not going to win the 10th, that 10th district seat, that's the 5th district. Could you win all others, do you think, all other 9? Because people would know, yes, in this new board, there'll be 21 board members, but 11 of them will be appointed by the mayor,
Right.
and 10 of them will be elected. Right. Of those 10 that are elected, he's got 1 already because there's only 1 candidate, and that's his bought candidate, right?
Correct.
And now there are 9 others. Could you win the other 9?
I'm optimistic that we could do well in these
Ballpark,
elections.
how many? I know you'd like them all to win. What's your likeliest outcome of this election? For those 9, how many are you likely to win?
Sure. Well, given that the CTU started out very early because this was their
Absolutely,
initiative,
right.
They came out with their slate of candidates that they recruited, and so way before we did. And they have what I could see somehow.
Okay, so what's the answer? How many could you
unlimited
win?
money. I would be happy if we could win half of the races.
4 or 5.
Yes. But I think we can do more, and we'll see. The sad part is, at the end of the day, for a mayor and a CTU that argued that a mayoral appointed school board is an illegitimate school board, they still have their way that
Because now they're the mayor.
they still couldn't write.
The Chicago way, when the situation changed, look, the Chicago way is situational politics, situational philosophies, situational. It depends. It depends whether Brandon is in power. Well, then he doesn't want anything elected, except him, but certainly nothing else being elected because he was elected. What's the biggest issue that should come up?
Brandon Johnson.
You think that should be the issue?
That should be the issue in terms of his governance, not only of the public schools, but of the city, because it all affects the education of children.
Is that the issue that is coming up, the biggest issue?
That is the issue.
So that should be, and we're talking about the right stuff. Do you want this guy running everything? Isn't that the question?
That's what people are asking.
This guy
us.
being Mayor Brandon Johnson.
People are asking us, as we have folks going door to door, people ask me, who are the Johnson candidates? Right? They just want to know, so they know.
They're
how
the
to
CTU
vote.
candidates.
They're the
Brandon
CTU
equals CTU.
Absolutely. There's
Put
no
in math
distinction.
terms, and CTU equals Brandon.
Yeah, it's no distinction. And the whole premise of why these school board elections are taking place is to have a separation from the mayor's office, yet that's non-existent
To be
today.
independent.
To be completely
Your candidates
independent.
are saying we're independent. They like it that way.
They're independent
CTO
with
says,
one mind.
the hell with that. Well, they don't quite say that, but we all know that's what they mean.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with supporting mayor, and the mayor
Jeff, I'll
supports
tell you.
them. That's the way it should be.
I'll tell you,
That's
Jeff,
what the
I'm an
CTU
old
says.
organizer. I'm an old organizer, right? I certainly understand the idea of building power and self-interest and all that. CTU today has mastered that. That's what they've been able to do. And they're experts at it. I wish they were just as good as educating children, because they're not. They failed at that. But they're very good at what they do, which is the organizing work, in which that needs a counter.
There are people who say that Brandon Johnson could never get elected if there were election were held today, tomorrow, this week.
I'll tell
is
you,
that right?
we did a poll this summer, and Brandon Johnson is polling underwater in every single school district in Chicago. Within the black community, he's only polling at 27% favorable. Within the white community, at 22% favorable, and Latinos only 17% favorable. So that tells you where the people are.
He may have a problem
He has a
getting
big
reelected.
problem. He has a big problem. I would say that his candidates for school board have a big problem.
We'll find out on November 5 or a
find
few
out.
days after. Well, the other problem we're talking about in public affairs, you may be talking about at the Urban Center, is the paucity of kids at CPS who can read at grade level. Some would say who could read at all. If they're Black and Hispanic, my mind, it fluctuates over the last 10 to 20 years between 10 and 20%, maybe single digits in some areas of Chicago. So at most, 20% of Blacks can read at grade level, similar for Hispanics, 80% CPS. CPS is failing to teach reading.
Right.
And maybe whites are 11%, maybe they're learning it, maybe 50%. Are those numbers accurate in your mind?
No, it's worse than that.
It's worse. I've painted a rosy picture.
Sadly, yes.
Yes.
African American kids are performing at 11% for reading levels, and Latinos at 18%.
Okay.
And that's an embarrassment, right? And that needs to change. And this comes over the last 10 years that has been governed at CPS by the radical fringe of the CTU. That's the reality, right? And it's not, people can say, we need more money, They have gotten more money.
$10 billion worth, right?
Absolutely.
And now they want more. Do you think they need more money?
I don't think they know what to do with what they already have.
They don't need more money.
We shouldn't
You
give
would say
them
that.
more. If there's no accountability.
These empty schools. Chicago, 614 schools, Wirepoint says 290 have fewer than 15% of the students reading at grade level. 436 of the 614 schools have fewer than 15% of students doing math at grade level. Right. Shouldn't we be talking about that?
Yes, and that's just one of the issues.
Every school board candidate should be talking about.
Absolutely.
Your school board candidates should be running around with these Wirepoint slides. Are they doing that?
Yeah.
They believe in this, what I just said?
I think they believe in that. I think right now they're defending themselves from the charges from CTU and all sorts of crazy things that are being talked about.
This is the biggest defense. The truth is defense, right?
The truth is defense, absolutely.
Okay. 34% of the traditional neighborhood schools that Brandon loves so much are half empty or worse.
Yeah.
Half empty or worse. You see, this is their campaign. Around the state of Illinois, it's true. You want to focus on Illinois, not just Chicago. Yeah. Waukegan, Hispanic, 13%.
Jeff, I'll tell you, I've been around long enough now to have seen the curve of the time when Chicago used to be hailed as the capital of school reform and innovation and all that. Those days are long gone. It's a sad indictment of what the teachers union has done. This particular teachers union has done to our
So look around the country. Wirepoints has 31 now states have some form of school choice. Just as Illinois killed off its last bit of school choice, Louisiana became the 31st to have some form of school choice. A dozen of those states, Wirepoint says, have universal school choice. Every kid, no matter what the income level, they can go, they get a package of a certain amount of money, many would say enough, to go to the private school of their choice or public school.
Right.
That's the rest of the country.
That's the rest
31 of the states. And Illinois says no.
Illinois is the only state that's actually killed a school choice program in the nation, which is very, very sad.
But so summing up, but it's chaos here. It's failure at CPS. But around the state of Illinois, it's all that. But it's all corrupt because the Illinois legislature gave the teachers' unions more power just recently when they passed Amendment 1. They enshrined these substantial powers that CTU had and tried to give it to unions around the state of Illinois forever. You couldn't just change the law. Now you have to change the Constitution.
Yeah. Well,
have I said anything, including those last few sentences, that you disagree with?
No, and I'll tell you, it's even worse than that, because I was part of the fight to keep the tax credit scholarship program alive, and we would get legislators. We would approach them and with our families and parents and kids, and the question would be asked, like, what does the teachers union think? Instead of thinking, what does my constituents, what do my voters think? The question would be, what does the teachers union think? That's a sad indictment of where we're at.
So, summing up, keep saying, but this is the true summary. Wirepoint just came out with these slides. Jessica Biggs, tried to get her on. She says she's an independent. She says the solution is we need more money. She's independent, she says, of the CTU. Jessica, come on after the election. You say you're going to win. Maybe you did. Come on as a winner or loser. But CPS spending on salaries and benefits up 50% since 2019, says WirePoint. That's for everybody. It went up to a total from $4 billion to $6 billion over those years. $6 billion of the $10 billion salaries and benefits. Some people say it's more, and maybe they're hiding it somewhere. Mm-hmm. And, this was across the board. This was, from the COVID era, CPS spending went on a 25% hiring spree, even as enrollment shrunk 10% from 2019 to 2024.
Yep.
Okay?
Well, let's just assume.
How can you say we need more money when they're spending at that clip?
Right.
How can anybody say that? Yet they said.
Well, let's play along. Let's say the schools do need more money. And can we ask, the natural next question ought to be, and what do we get in exchange for that? Test scores are going to skyrocket to what level? Kids are going to be outperforming.
You would almost agree to it if you thought you would get that. But you don't think that's possible,
accountability.
do you?
At the end of the day, there's accountability. They have to deliver on something. You don't get free money.
But they have gotten free money because over the last decade or longer, spending has been going up tremendously, and test scores, it's hard to imagine, but they've actually gone down, right?
Not only have they gone down, but the school system in Chicago over the last 20 years has lost 111,000 kids. 111,000 kids. So what happened to those kids? Why did they leave the system? Right? Those are the questions. At the end of the day, yes, you can get more money. They've gotten free money all these years, but the losers have been the children and our families and our community.
So Juan Rangel, Executive Director of the Urban Center, sum it up, because we're taping this on October 28, but it's scheduled to air on the night before the November 5 election throughout the entire city of Chicago. Could be watching. You could have an audience of 2.7 million. You can watch it on youtube.com/publicaffairs.tv. We hope before. They got 3 or 4 days to consider your words before they vote. What do you tell that potential voter, Juan Rangel?
I think the voters have to ask the right questions in terms of where we've been and where they want to take the school system, right? The school board members have the potential to do that. And where do the school board members, the candidates, where do they reside on these issues in terms of, not just in terms of charter schools and all that and school choice, but in terms of our school budgets and accountability and ensure that children are actually learning. The entire premise of the public school system is ensuring that children can learn, can read and write and be productive citizens. We're not even doing that. That's the very basic of things.
So voters can elect 9 people who you're saying these 9 people, you have a lot of faith in, right?
I do.
Okay.
And not only faith in them, but they're going to ask the right questions, and they're just not going to fold over and go along with whatever Brandon.
These are Andre Smith. You know Andre.
Yes,
you got faith in him.
I do.
You have faith in Michelle Pure.
I do.
Bruce Leon, okay?
Yes.
Bruce is in the 2nd, Michelle's in the 1st. Andre Smith is in the 6th district. McQuell Lewis is in the 9th. You got faith in McQuell, right?
Absolutely.
You got faith in Carlos Rivas, right?
Yes.
He's in, I can't remember.
Yes. Eva Villalobos in District 7. That's Wilson. That's my own neighborhood, little village.
Angel Gutierrez in 8th.
Gutierrez in 8th in the Midway area. I'll tell you, these are...
So Rivas must be in the 4th by deduction, I think, okay?
He's in 3rd.
3rd, okay.
3rd. But I'll tell you,
Ellen Rosenfeld's on the 4th. You have faith in Ellen Rosenfeld, right? You've got faith in Karen Norrington Reeves in the 10th.
Yes.
Right? All of them. You unequivocally endorse them.
Absolutely. Yes, and I stand by them.
They're for choice.
They are for choice. I stand by them.
They're for controlled spending. They're for empowering who? Empowering who?
Empowering parents and community and taxpayers.
That's what the Urban Center is about.
Yes.
Okay. You come back when we have more time and tell us more about the other things that Urban Center is about that we didn't have time to cover. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Jeff.
Juan Rangel, for telling it like it is. Thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you
for
having
back.
me. I will be back. Thank you.
And you come back to Public Affairs next week and every week.